So, Leda and the Swan, a poem written by William Butler Yeats, who is William, known as W.B. Yeats. And in our class, we have completed other poems. That is, as I have said, that is the Second Coming and also the Easter 1916. And this is the third poem we are going to read in this course. And we have several poems, 5 poems up there. So before going to start the poems, let's see the background of this poem. You see here, that is most probably all of you have heard the name of Trojan ware or the ware of Troy. You have heard, and actually this ware, this legendary ware, was occurred between the two great powers or the two great civilizations, that is the Greek civilization and the Troy. Troy was a country at the time of the western part of the Greek, and that was dated in 12th to 13th century BC, where the legendary war took place. And what we see that in case of this legendary war, how do we reader know this Trojan war? We have learned this Trojan war from some great epics, that is Iliad, and also we have learned it from Odyssey. Also, we have from the other Roman writers like Virgins in it. So, in that great epic that noted the history of the Troy War or the Trojan War, we fantastically notice the involvement of several god and goddess. And at the time, there was a mythological presentation of God. That means people would be believing in the god and goddess who had been living in the Olympia hill. And that god and goddess's involvement are important in that war, as well as God could determine in every activities of human being. And an intervention of God can be termed in another form, that is the intervention of fate, we can say. And this intervention of fate is called or can be termed as the intervention of God or the heavenly intervention. So there is a significant role of fate, God, or heavenly intervention in human life, and as well as in the great word like the Trojan War. W.B. Yeats, our poet, has picked a mythological incident in this poem, that is Leda and the Swan. And the word, the Trojan War, what is the result of this Trojan War? We know that a history of a country is boosted up and written after getting the fuel of a great war. So After the Trojan War, what happened that we have seen that the Greeks civilization and the Greek warriors, they they thought that we had so many great heroes in our country, so we can do many things in our life and getting boost up from the Trojan War, the Greek civilization, one of the earliest civilization, rolled over all the world for several centuries. And the inspiration that the Greeks got from the Trojan War. And the Trojan War occurred in 12th to 13th century BC. But the Greek people wouldn't know if Homer wouldn't write Iliad, if Homer wouldn't write the Odyssey. So the Trojan War pushed up the Greek imaginative power and reading Iliad, Odyssey, and in it, the Greek and Roman civilization, the Greek and Roman people, they got the inspiration that we have so many heroes in our country. And for this reason, we see the dominance of Greek and Roman civilization all over the world. And this is, we see that what was the result of Trojan War. In the Trojan War, the Troy city was burned to ashes, and Helen was taken up, and the women were taken up from the Troy, and the city Troy were massacred. But from that massacre, the people, that means the people of Greek, they were inspired and they built up their history in one way. And another way, the people, uh, that is the uh, writers and also the other poets got imaginative power to catch the real history of Troy. And our poet, W.B. Yeats, picked up that history in this poem, W.B. Yeats. And what is the relation between these two poems? That is, Leda and the Swan fictionalizes the classic Greek myth in which we have seen that Leda, a human woman, is impregnated by the god Zeus while he is in the form of a swan. So at the initial part, or the first part, it is a sonnet, Leda and the Swan is a sonnet. Yeah, in the first part, we see that the first time the incidents of rape happened, and in the second part, we see the real history of the Troy. So the Leda and Swan, the poet fictionalizes the Greek classical myth as we have understood that in which a human being, that means Leda, has been raped and impregnated by the god, especially the supreme god, Zeus. According to Greek myth, you know that Zeus is the great god, the supreme god. And this Zeus raped and impregnated Leda, a human. These incidents result the birth of Helen of Troy. We know for such kind of physical relation, the result came that the most beautiful girl of this world, Helen, was born from Leda. And this beauteous girl, next time, it grows up to cause the legendary Trojan War. And we know that the Trojan War was caused for this beautiful girl, Helen. You know the history that Helen first married to Agamemnon, Greek king, and next time Agamemnon's wife Helen was uh, run away by Paris. That means the Trojan prince. And this incident next time leads to the Troy fire. And there is an incident, interesting history. Most probably you have noticed that, and you know that history. Let me repeat it very brief, that Helen was the beautiful woman or girl at that time. And Helen was the women whom every king and every prince would try to marry her. So there was a compromise that who will marry Helen? Helen is a single girl. So Helen can't marry so many girls together or princes together. And for this reason, there was a truce. There was an agreement that Helen will choose her husband, and other princes will help Helen's husband in danger, in problem. The key point of this agreement was that if any prince marry Helen, the other princess will be angry at her, at their conjugal life. And for this reason, Helen and Helen's husband couldn't live their happy life. And for this reason, this agreement was done that Helen will choose her husband, and the other princess all over the world, they will be helping Helen's husband and that conjugal life. And that agreement was done. And in that category, Menelaus, Agamemnon's elder brother, married Helen. And Agamemnon and Menelaus was in a tour. And before that, Paris, that is the king, the son, the prince of Priam. Priam was the king of Troy. So Troy's prince, Paris, came to visit Agamemnon and Menelaus. So Paris was accepted heartily. Paris was given shelter in the Greek royal palace. Paris has been passing his days in that royal palace. And in that time, Menelaus and Agamemnon, they went to a stately tour to some places, and for 6 or 7 months. At that time, an affinity grew between Paris and Helen. And Paris Paris kidnapped Helen. In history, it says that Paris didn't kidnap Helen. Actually, Helen intentionally went to Paris. And why? Because Helen herself chose Menelaus. But how could she leave Menelaus and make such kind of disastrous end of war like the Trojan War? There is an analogy. This is also a hypothesis. Naturally, at that time, the history that was written and that we have got from Iliad, Odyssey, or some other Greek epics, that history was written by the poets and the other Greek poet Homer and Virgil. The hypothesis is that Helen is the most beautiful girl of this world, in comparison to that Helen's husband Menelaus was nearly 3 times older than Helen. So there might have a age gap, a big age gap, a fast age gap between Helen and Menelaus. And Paris, in comparison, was similar to Helen's age. And actually, another thing is that Menelaus was the king of Greek at the time. And Menelaus' younger brother Agamemnon was the commander-in-chief of the Greek army. And especially for a king like Menelaus, he was not ready to, he didn't have much time to give Helen. So a mental loneliness pervaded in Helen. With all this result, Helen went with Paris. Uh, but Agamemnon returned and noticed that their sister-in-law has been gone. So if Agamemnon would say that Helen has left them, then the other countries' people, the other countries, the prince, they made an agreement that they will be helping Helen and Helen's husband in danger, so that the country will not come forward. So Agamemnon very uh, politically spread that news that Paris kidnapped Helen. And when that news was spread all the other countries, according to the agreement done earlier, every country came up with their fleet, that means the group of ships at that time, to fight against Troy and recapture Helen, or to back their king's wife to the Greek. That is the history suggests. But the mythological history, as I have mentioned a little bit earlier, that uh, in that time, Greek god and goddess could maintain every activities of human being. And this activity, that means Paris's relation with Helen, that was ordained and that was also done by the Greek god and goddess. It means that in a in a in a in a in a wedding ceremony, that is uh, Mars, a god of warriors, was not invited, and that wedding ceremony was all in the among the Greek god and goddess. All are invited, but Mars was not invited. And at that time, Mars put a golden ball to the to the marriage ceremony, and it was inscribed on that ball that for the fairest women of this world. So there are three goddesses: Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena. All claimed that I am the fairest of this world, so I will own this very beauteous ball. And then Zeus, the supreme god, appointed uh, appointed appointed Paris as the judge who will be getting that that ball. So Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite started negotiating with Paris. Uh, Athena said that I will make Paris the great king of this world if we if you favor me and mention my name, that I will be the owner of that ball. And Athena also offered um, another portion. But Aphrodite said that Paris, I will manage you to have the most beautiful girl of this world. And uh, if we favor me and name me as the most beautiful girl of this world. So Paris passed the ball to Aphrodite, and Aphrodite won that battle. And for that reason, it is the involvement of uh, Aphrodite, that Aphrodite took Paris to in Greek and managed to get Helen, the beautiful, the most beautiful women of this world, to Paris's wife. So I am restating this history because the involvement of God and Goddess, and also I have said that a human being at the time was entangled by fate or Greek goddess and god, and in uh, in clear words, their every activities was done by heavenly intervention. So here, judging Aphrodite, the most fairest women, Aphrodite was happy, but Hera and Athena was angry at Paris. And this situation we see in the Greek, the Trojan War. That means Aphrodite was in favor of Paris. That means one god in favor of Paris and the Troy city, and Hera, Athena, was in favor of the Greek armies. Okay, and you know the history. The Trojan War took part in 10 years, and finally they were occupied by the tricks of the wooden horse. So the Trojan War becomes, so what is the result of the Trojan War that we mentioned in a brief, then we will go quickly to the point. So Trojan War becomes the motivation. So for this physical relation between Leda and the Swan, the Helen was born, the most beautiful women of this world, and who was married to Paris. And this beautiful woman became the cause of the great war, that is the Trojan War. And the Trojan War becomes the motivation for the golden age of the Greece and the dawn of the modern history. So, as I have mentioned, that Trojan War, and especially Iliad, the Trojan War occurred in 12 to 13 century BC. But after getting the history, the Greek confident level, the Greek civilizations was boosted up, and they got their motivation, and they ruled the most part of this world for this motivating Trojan War. WBS present that Greek myth, especially the involvement of Helen, Aphrodite, and Athena in this traditional sonnet to in order to show the readers a new perspectives. What is the new perspectives? Uh, what is the new perspectives? That means Yeats wanted to answer the what is the significance of myth in in Greek history, and he tried to have answer of two questions by this poem, the Leda and Swan. That is how history is made. What is uh, what is the significance of the history we are getting from the Trojan War, and how do fate's violence and the indifference occur in human life. That means we are handicapped, we are handicapped by fate. Even that idea is still we, uh, the human being, are determined by the involvement of the god and goddess, and also the involvement of uh, especially in the modern age also we see such kind of incidents in our life. But at that time, WPS try to put the significant role of fate and try to put the role of fate in human affairs. So we see that Leda and the Swan, that the powerful forces by which the history are made. So history, uh, Leda and Swan was written in 1920. The direct answer of such rape between uh, Leda and the Swan was not given to the poem, but we have said that uh, for the Trojan War, if there wouldn't be a Trojan War, the history of Greek civilization wouldn't be like this. History of Roman civilization wouldn't be like this. So, for the force, for the devastating Trojan War, the history of Greek civilization was written. For this Trojan War, the history of Odyssey, history of Diomedes, history of several Greek god and goddess, the history of several mighty kings and queens, they also took part in the Trojan War. The history is made. So the main ingredients of the history, that is the power. And the scenery, if we make another analysis between the poem's age and the Trojan War, I have said that the Trojan War made the history, not I, especially W.B. Yeats wanted to say that the Trojan War made the history in of the Greek, Romans, Diomedes, Achilles, and others, great heroes. So history here is made for powerful presence of a nation. In the same way, after the First World War, the rhetorics of the power were changed, and the people and the mighty country, USA, UK, they became the supreme power. And when they became the supreme power, everything became good and well to the power's rhetoric. That means a class will be emerged, that is the aristocratic class, because they have the political and economic power. So everything is in their control. So history is made for the cause of the powerful presence of a nation. And the second one that I have repeated several times, that we, the human being, our life is jeopardized, and we can do more without the signal of the heavenly intervention that Leda couldn't. Leda, at the first time, tried to get herself relief from the the heavenly heart of Jews, but she couldn't manage so. And that is the another question. WPX wanted to have from this point, Leda and so on. You see the image of Leda and so on, and you see this is Leda and the wings, that is the swan wings, and also the throat of the swan. So this is the image of this poem, Leda and the swan. And the history that, let me repeat that, that means the god, the supreme god, Greek mythological god Zeus, in the form of a swan, suddenly attacks on human, that is the Leda. And with the help of, as we see, that swan has a very long, has very long wings. With the help of this enormous wing, Zeus attacked Leda. And she stumbles, that means Leda stumbles as he looms about her. And his webbed feet, you know, that this is called web. That means there is a muscle portion between the two nails of our hand. In case of the swan, they have nails. They have every nails is webbed. It helps them to swim. So the wave feet grabbing hold of her thighs while his beak lashes on the her neck, and with the help of their feet, the swan grabbed Leda, and with the beak, that means throat, with the beak he caught hold Leda. She is overpowered, upright only because Zeus is holding her up and pressing their bodies close together as he assaults her. Assault means sudden attack without any indication. The attacks occur. That is called a sudden attack. So Zeus attacks Hera, Leda suddenly, and that is the sorry. Is there any? There is another. Uh, is there any way Leda, terrified, disoriented figures could prevent the god from the parting her thighs and raping her? So this is the question done by W.B. Yeats, and he himself didn't answer. That if Leda would try to get herself relief from Zeus, would she do that? And again, she had another question. That is, how could she, overwhelmed by this blur of white feathers, and keep from feeling the alien heartbreaks of her attackers pressed against her own? So that was the new history. Next time we have seen that the swan Zeus ejaculates into Leda's womb and conceives the child Helen, who will grow up and shape mythological history by causing the fall of Troy and the death of the Greek king Agamemnon. Leda was Leda too overwhelmed or too overpowered by her godly assailant to realize the significance of this moment? Or did she possibly gain access to the Jew's godly foresight before he callously let go or let her fall? That is the question. It means that W.B. Yeats didn't answer the question that uh, that that he put in the poem. So this is the poem, and it's a sonnet, as you see that we will see that Leda and the Swan, written by W.B. Yeats. Ah, sudden blow, the great wings beating still. That means the attack done by the Jews was suddenly. Anybody who don't know, the great wings beating still. The great wings of the Swan was trying to attack Leda above the staggering girl. The girl at first, that means Leda, was trying to get herself relief from the attack of this big swan. Actually, the Hera wouldn't know, sorry, Leda wouldn't know that it is the Jews. Her thighs pierce. That means with the help of the swan, that means the swan touched Leda's thigh with a very with softly.
চার্জার কানেক্ট করে নিলে অফ হয়ে যাবে